Darksiders 3 is a mixed bag. It's like a cake with some good layers. You got your vanilla, chocolate, mocha, whatever, but then you also got some bad layers like avocado, string beans, and romaine lettuce. Like, what are you even putting in there? Why would you do that? Why would you just ruin this cake? There are a lot of things wrong with the game, but also a lot right, and a lot of things that kept me interested in playing the game. Not to mention the stuff that surrounded the development that definitely didn't help. So if we jump a little back in time...
Let's go back in time, shall we? Doodle, doodle, doodle. Hey, want to come over and play my Wii?
Darksiders 1, 80% Metacritic rating. Okay, people like it. Darksiders 2, around the same thing. Then THQ fucking dissolves into thin air, like Spider-Man. The original Darksiders development team, named Vigil, they're left hanging. And when THQ auctions off their assets, they don't even get picked up. They don't get picked up until this place called Nordic talks to them about publishing the game. By the way, Nordic becomes THQ Nordic because they bought so many of their properties because they wanted to be associated with the THQ brand, which in turn was also associated with the franchises like Warhammer, Darksiders, SpongeBob, and other prestige franchises. So with all that said, even though I think this game lacks polish and isn't the best, it's definitely not because of a lack of effort. Probably just because of a bad situation and a lack of resources that AAA games or studios get.
Blubbering human, come to me. Now! Do you want to live?
What?
If you want to live, I can send you to a safe place. Safe as any, I suppose. Touch it. Idiots. It's a miracle they ruled the Earth for as long as they did.
Now the story of this game is pretty good. There's a lot of it that's filled in between the blanks and through your interactions with other people. So when you start off, you got Fury, the main character, one of the horsemen of the apocalypse, going like, I'm so strong, I'm powerful, and I'm gonna destroy everybody, and you know, I'm all sassy and aggressive and stuff. And you're like, whoa, she's a badass. But then the game goes on and then you realize that she's actually not the generic badass hero in all video games who's super confident and super powerful. But you actually realize that she's just a weak piece of shit, but like in an endearing way. She subverts the trope and she's actually a protagonist with an inferiority complex. Kind of like if Death and War are Ed and Double D, Fury is like Eddie. And it's super interesting because I don't think you typically get to be a protagonist like that very often. Not only that, but the whole game's story is kind of built on this arc of her being weak and her thinking that she's weak and wanting to be stronger. She wants to be better than her brothers and she wants to lead the horsemen, and she ends up becoming a person who isn't so consumed by that. She grows and deals with her issues in a way that's not like cheesy and hand wavy, and she's not instantly reconciled with all her issues, but she's kind of like, oh, I recognize these issues and I might be fucked up and I'll deal with it, but right now I gotta deal with the whole apocalypse thing. The actual details of the story are kind of uninteresting, but it's just like your typical heaven-hell stuff where the angels and demons are actually in a morally gray area instead of black and white, like Supernatural or any other heaven-hell related fiction written in like the past 1,000 years. You got these 7 deadly sins that serve as your bosses, you got this Hollow King dude that's just giving you video game powers, and you got your brothers who never show up in the game. This video game is just devoid of characters. There aren't a lot. The people that you interact with the most are this girl spirit thing who just teleports around you and gives you quips, and this guy who gives you merch in return for giving him souls, and then this troll upgrade dude who's just here to just like whack your weapon and give you upgrades. The game also has this glaring issue where it gives you a choice, which it doesn't really give you beforehand, and you can accidentally skip the consequences of this choice. Because what happened to me, spoiler warning, is the Hollow King dude tells me to kill this demon architect guy, and then I killed him, but then I didn't go back to the Hollow King guy because usually he teleports me after I do whatever he asked me to do. So because I didn't go back to him, I actually skipped the super important cutscene, and the game ended, and apparently there was something that I was supposed to do and go back to him that just never ended up getting resolved because I never transported myself back. Even when I finished the game and I went back, apparently the event already happened, which is really weird and definitely like a really bad oversight. The ending of the game also wraps things up in a neat bow that weren't presented very well in the first place. Fury ends up becoming the guardian for all humanity and hiding with them until they become strong enough to become like the balance bringers of the universe or something. She basically says like, fuck you to her bosses who are essentially manipulating her the whole time, and she just goes and guards them while a demonic horde attacks their base. This kind of comes out of nowhere because she really never bonds with humans, except for one scene where she has like a really weird long conversation with this human leader guy who's clearly not just a human. You know, surprise, surprise, it's your brother Strife. So that part of the story is kind of weak. There's also a clear through line of her taking her duty seriously and wanting to prove herself towards her self-awareness and wanting to do the right thing without the council's input. But her connecting with the humans and becoming their protector just comes out of thin air. I thought a more fitting ending would be a la Halo Reach, which I thought was going to happen, where Fury gives her life fighting an endless horde of demons who are raising the earth while the last bits of humanity are escaping through a portal. There's also a twist in the game that I won't spoil, but it really wasn't the most surprising, especially if you know the stories of the older games. In a way, the budget and scope of the game allow for a very laser-focused story without any frills, and it delivers. As soon as you learn the game and get past its stupid design decisions and difficulty, you start feeling stronger as a character. And that feeling's directly mirrored by Fury in the game. She feels like she's getting stronger, she feels like things are changing in the game, and she comments on it multiple times. And also, in a meta sense, the game is like Fury. It's not like its siblings and no one likes it or thinks it's as good. So it has that, I guess. The game's gameplay is rough. I know this isn't a AAA game, and they probably had not a very large budget and a lot of time constraints, but I feel like someone needed to do a once-over over a lot of aspects of this game. It's like everything they worked on was a first draft. The core mechanics, the puzzles, the level design, how they laid out the world map, the hollows, and everything. The first thing I noticed about this game is that it had a combo attack system. So I somehow got it in my peanut brain that it would be a combo-heavy game like Devil May Cry or Bayonetta or Tetris or like the original God of War games. But instead what you really get is some sort of like Metroidvania puzzle-solving Dark Souls game. But it has a combo system with attacks that chain together and are supposed to be strong, but then enemies get super armor so they can just attack through your combos, so what's the point of doing combos anyway? You should just dodge roll. There wasn't enough consideration on what these mechanics would do for the gameplay. For example, coming from a game like Spider-Man, where you play as like a bug dude who can swing all over the place like a monkey, like you would think that Fury's whip could be used as something more than just a one-dimensional traversal tool. I mean, that's actually really generous. Her whip is only available to be used in the most specific of circumstances. Like, bro, if you're gonna let me swing from surfaces, why can I swing from only one thing? What's stopping me? This is also my problem with her other later movement abilities linked to something called hollows. If you're gonna allow me to float, boost up, swing from things, walk on water, and stick to walls, why can't I chain these abilities together and play like that? Like another game that allows me to do these things. Maybe Darksiders 3 wasn't meant to be an open world exploration game, except it takes place in an open world where you're meant to explore and get lost and do things, I guess. I mean, frankly, the various movement abilities have got to make designing levels and puzzles hard, especially if you allow them to chain together, but it makes me think that the game could have been a lot different and more satisfying, and it doesn't really make sense in the world, except for on the developer level. If I actually had a chain that could stick to things and I could swing, I should realistically be able to do that to any surface in which my blade can pierce. But instead of things like that, we get super specific ways to unlock certain paths or areas like Metroid or like Castlevania. Now, don't get me wrong, I hate this in all games. Like in God of War, you have a dude who can literally shatter mountains, but is also incapable of jumping. Hopefully one day, developers will account for characters that should be able to move and jump instead of acting like people in games are magnetized to the ground all the time. I'm not saying every video game character should be able to fly, but if you have a person who is able to, lift mountains, they should also be able to jump over mountains. Speaking of different hollows in gameplay, I definitely think there were some missed opportunities here to have you be able to chain hollows together into different combos, especially with this combo attack system that's in the game. But I definitely think that if you wanted to have a more focused Soulsy experience, you didn't need to have these combos in there. If you're going into the game blind like I did with no knowledge of the story or previous games or developer interviews, I think the game baits you into thinking it's like a dumb beat 'em up where you play as a super strong character. But instead, you quickly learn that you're actually just, a piece of shit. And you gotta dodge roll everything because this is basically like a Souls game. except the invincibility frames on the dodge roll aren't good enough to actually, dodge roll attacks that aren't even telegraphed that well in the first place. But, all this about the combat isn't to say that I didn't have fun or I thought it was excessively hard. I was having fun, and, after putting on easy, I found the combat challenging but fair. That's just my personal taste. I like combat being challenging as long as I don't have to necessarily die a lot to figure things out, but I think this game can just be misleading with how you should approach the combat. I think if you're just going to be a Dark Souls type game, have basic attacks, you don't need to have like a combo system that makes me think, oh, I'm supposed to be stringing together combos. But after a couple of hours learning the game, bobbing and weaving and somewhat chaining different hollow attacks and killing enemies without taking damage, you get a nice flow and enjoyment of the game. You get in this place where you just enjoy it and you're going through it and everything's smooth until you hit puzzles that take up like 40 minutes. I was told that the puzzles in this game are a lot easier than earlier games, but that does not change my opinion. I'm like a peanut brain gamer. I'm dumb. I'm like a gorilla. I don't know how to play puzzle games. I'm used to games like God of War, Tomb Raider, where the puzzles are like immediately in front of you and are painted white to make things easier for you. This game basically has you jaunt around and do things for half an hour just to open a single doorway. Not to mention the compass system is no help. Through the game, you're just kind of thrown to the winds if you don't follow the compass, but then when you follow the compass, it leads you to doorways that are blocked. When the puzzle sections happen, you basically have to ignore the compass the whole time or you just end up going back to your blocked door. This frustrated me because I thought I maybe needed to find an alternate route or something, thinking that the puzzle was maybe for like extra souls or a rare treasure, but instead it was actually just for progressing the game. I got so lost that I didn't even realize it was like the main quest. The game needed a map of some sort. Not even a huge one, but just a mini map that marks where your goal is so you know that's where you're trying to go, but might not necessarily be the puzzle location. I know the developers weren't trying to put in a map or any guidance, but this seriously just gave me a headache instead of contributing to my positive experience of the game. Additionally, in the last world of the game, the compass kept pointing me in the wrong direction and having me moving in circles for almost an hour. The lack of a map also makes it so if you backtrack, you can't really use the fast travel system unless you know exactly where it is, which you won't because there's no map, because you never know the names of things, except it pops up once on your screen for like a second, and the compass can't indicate distance. So the only point in the fast travel system is to allow you to quickly travel back to the upgrade troll guy so he can upgrade your weapons, and that's it. I wonder why they didn't even just decide to put the upgrade troll next to the soul eating guy all the time, like a little pair, just so I didn't need to go through extra load screens to upgrade my gear. Also, the camera sucks. Now at this point, I don't know if it goes under the art section, but I wish there were more enemy varieties. I know there's a lot of backtracking, but I wish different sins all had their own enemies associated with their characteristics instead of all just being trolls or bugs being the enemy types for all the sins.
There wasn't much that the humans got right, but they did know art.
What?
Frankly, I think it's one of the reasons that the angels were so jealous of them. Have you ever seen one of those birds paint?
You're talking about art. Now. Here.
It's a museum.
But like the art though? Art direction, oh my god, great stuff all around. Even though Joe Mad isn't around for this entry, his influence definitely shows. Everything looks unique, stylized, and great. From Fury's design to the different sins, the environments, it all looks wonderful. It looks like it comes out of like a comic book or like a concept art book. It all looks so good and so pretty that I kept playing it even though for the first hours I hated the game. Like I wanted to quit and I couldn't because Fury looks so cool, her animations look so cool. Everything about it was so beautiful. I wish the enemy animations had a little bit more wind up, but I got used to it after a while. The game looks so great, I wish there was just a little bit more life to the world, but I guess they explain that in that it's the apocalypse and everyone's dead except for angels and demons, so life is kind of scarce. On sound, I love Fury's character and her interactions with her watcher, but I wish they spent more time and recorded more lines. In games like God of War or Spider-Man or like another third-person action-adventure game with a sidekick, there's always a constant dialogue going on between our main character and their companion, allowing you a better insight to their character. I loved Fury, and I definitely wanted to hear more voice lines from her. Remember when I said earlier on that like we get a lot of interpolation between things, that we gotta like infer how she's feeling? It's because she doesn't talk. With the amount of voice lines she has in the game, like depending on how fast you progress, sometimes she just talks a lot and then sometimes she's just like mute. Something that could have helped with the puzzle difficulty are voice lines from Fury or the Watcher suggesting how to solve them, which do happen, but only for the simplest puzzles and if you've been there for like an hour. It makes you confused as to why they were in the more obvious puzzles and not in the harder ones that force you to explore like a 5-mile radius for a solution. Overall though, Darksiders 3 is a dope game, but it has a lot of things holding it back. The game at times tugs at my heartstrings and makes me sweat with anticipation, but other times it makes me spend 40 minutes backtracking because I'm lost, and not in a good way. There's a distinct sense that I get that there could have been more done, whether it's on the gameplay, story, or voice recording. However, the bright parts of the game shine so much that it genuinely makes me want to play Darksiders 4 and check out the older games. And I hope Gunfire is allowed or find some way to make the sequel. For Darksiders 4, they gotta like polish their shit, but I'm down, man. Let's go. I give Darksiders 3 a 3 out of 5. Thanks for watching this video, and let me know what you think in the comments below. Subscribe, hit the bell, smash things, smash your keys while you type in some comments. Tell me what you want next, if it's more comic book videos, video game reviews, movie reviews, videos for all three, or none of them, music reviews. I don't even listen to that much music, but if you want to hear my opinions on things, like, you know, you go. Thanks for watching. Stay fleshy.
Kept you waiting, huh?